Okay, so I think we all have that like really creepy friend that we don't want around, but at the same time, like we keep them around because you feel bad for them, but the pity leads up to them being really weird and taking pictures of children, and you start questioning why, but then, I don't know, they end up being like a weird answer, and you know, overall, they just end up becoming like Diddy. Well, I've had one of those friends back in high school, and he actually ended up going to jail for being like Diddy. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another crazy, but also really insane story. Now, this story all takes place back when I was in high school, and this was my grade 11 year. Now, grade 11 is like the year where you basically like figure out your last final years of high school and how you want to be remembered. And obviously for me, I want to be remembered as the guy who was like the player of all players. Like I did the Devil's Tango and basically was popular. Kind of sad to be known as that, but to be fair, there was a lot of people that were known for worse. Like for example, there was one guy in our school, he ended up graduating being remembered as the guy who picked his nose. Like yeah, he was definitely a loser. But one thing was for sure was that growing up, especially my grade 11 years specifically, I wanted to make sure that I was remembered for being amazing. Anyways, I remember my grade 11 year, I was on my phone scrolling through TikTok one time until out of nowhere, there was a girl that walks up to me. Now this girl that walks up to me, she had like a little sister that knew my little sister and they were friends. So she would walk up to me and kind of like talk to me about like, you know, how life's going and stuff. And like, you know, basically how's my sister doing? Obviously I gave her the update, but I was never interested in this girl in the first place because she was kind of mid and also kind of chopped. But I remember as I'm like talking to her out of nowhere, I ended up seeing this guy in the corner of her classroom kind of staring into the classroom like a weirdo. Now this guy was not a new kid in our school. If anything, throughout the entire school year, he was already known to be really creepy and weird. Over time, I remember as he was like looking over at us, I ended up looking at him and kind of pointing him out to the girl that was talking to me. The girl looks over and she's like, oh yeah, he's just doing his thing, I guess. I don't know why, but he's been looking at me a lot lately. What do you mean a lot? I don't know, but he's making me really uncomfortable. When she said this, obviously I was like, yo, like that's weird. I'm gonna go like straight up just confront him because like what kind of guy does that anyway? So I walk over to the door and I end up seeing him kind of like running away. The girl ends up walking up behind me being like, yeah, don't expect to catch him. I don't know why, but like no one really talks to him. And when she said that, my curiosity peaked. And at that moment, my curiosity peaked because I wanted to figure out what was really going on with this dude. So at this moment, after homeroom ended, I ended up walking around the school, kind of just like casually looking for him and kind of like, you know, scanning the area for this creep. But then afterwards, I ended up seeing him actually sitting in the corners of like between like the lockers that I was like close to. And I walk up to him and I'm like, yo, like what you up to, man? Oh, nothing. Just kind of chilling out, you know, hanging out. What's going on, man? Oh, nothing. I was just like wondering, you know, you've been like kind of like looking around really creepy lately. Is everything good with you? What do you mean creepy? What are you talking about? Well, I don't know. Like people say like you've been like watching them and stuff. Like you good? Like why are you acting weird? And at this moment, he ends up going inside his backpack and pulling out a camera. Oh, I take photos for the school. You know, I'm kind of like, you know, taking photos for our final like last 2 school years for the senior year. I kind of just like, you know, look around and see what's up. Oh, so like, you know, you're looking around for taking pictures for the school paper. Yeah, actually, you're a really charming dude. Do you want me to take a photo of you? Oh, sure. Why not? So this guy ends up taking a photo of me. You know, I start posing and stuff. And in a way, I kind of like, you know, kind of felt glazed by him to the point where I was kind of like, okay, bet. Like, you know, this guy's pretty cool. So one thing leads to another. And I actually start appreciating this guy and being like, yo, man, if you ever need like help with like getting cool photos and stuff, let me know. When I said this to him, he was kind of like, I guess like starstruck or fan struck. I don't really know. But he looks at me and he's like, oh, wait. Really? Like you want me to like, you want to like help me with like the school paper? I mean, school, you know, thing that's going on? The school yearbook photos? Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, if you ever need help, just like let me know. I'll, you know, take you around the school, you know, just let me know if you need help. Okay, cool. Thanks, man. At this moment, he ends up walking away all excited, and I thought I did a good deed. But then the girl that was originally getting creeped on ends up walking up to me, and she says to me, oh, did you confront him? What'd he say? Oh, the guy's harmless. Don't worry about it. He's just taking photos for the school yearbook, is what I told her. And she looks at me kind of like, I thought the leadership students were doing that. I guess not. And I end up walking away. Now, this moment, as weeks went on, I started to realize that this dude was more creepy than I expected because he started going around places where I was at and started taking photos of me in random places. Like, for example, when I was eating lunchtime with the homies, he would just take a photo of us. You know, every time I was at my locker, just grabbing like a textbook or something, he would take a photo of me. And I started to feel really weird and realize that this guy was really taking it too far. So I remember during one of our school's basketball games, I was sitting on the bleachers just hanging out with some of the guys and a girl that I knew. And I ended up seeing him taking a photo of me and the girl. So I walk up to him and I'm like, yo, bro, like you're taking this too far with the photos. Like you can't only be taking photos of me, man. Like you're making it feel like, you know, I'm gonna be the entire yearbook. Oh, no, I just been taking photos like around like a lot of places where you're at because a lot of people, they try to stop me from taking photos. So if I'm with you, like you'll stop them, right? Yeah, sure, man. But like the camera's pointed at me a lot. Oh, no, it's just I have like an optical zoom lens thingy. And he starts like basically telling me like things about his camera that I didn't really understand at the time because I wasn't filming videos back then. So to be fair, the only camera I knew how to use was my iPhone camera. So I remember I just stopped him midway through his sentence and I'm like, you can take photos of whatever you want. Just don't be weird, okay? Okay, sorry. It's just I don't have a lot of friends and stuff and I don't really have someone to go through these photos with. And like, I was just wondering if you were down to like maybe like, you know, go through the photos with me. When he ended up asking me to hang out, basically, I ended up telling him how I was super busy and stuff and trying to find any excuse to the point where he said, oh, so like you just don't want to hang out, I guess? Do you think I'm a weirdo too? And that's when I told him, nah, man, you're not a weirdo. If anything, like after school, you know, I got to pick up my sister from middle school. So if you want to like, you know, come with me afterwards, go to my place, we can. Okay, yeah, that'll be cool. I'll see you in front of the school after school. So this got him excited and he ended up walking away. And at this moment, the girl that basically was watching the basketball game with me ends up coming up to me and she's like, oh, you been like hanging out with that guy? Huh? Nah, honestly, he's just some weirdo, but he's nothing. Don't worry about it. Let's just watch the game. And we ended up going back and watching the game. When after school came around, things got really weird because I ended up meeting up with him in front of the school and he brought his camera. Me and him started walking to the middle school that I used to go to that my little sister went to at this point. And as we're walking to the middle school, he ends up seeing a bunch of middle schoolers like kind of walking past us. And he starts kind of like acting really weird. By weird, I mean like he started looking at like the middle schoolers as if like, you know, they were like hot chicks or something. I don't really know why, but I ended up like basically like tapping his shoulder and being like, yo, bro, you good? Yeah, you know, just the scenery is really nice. Right, is what I told him. And then from there, I remember we finally got to the front of my sister's middle school and I told him, yo, stay here while I go inside and pick up my sister. Because obviously to get picked up at this middle school, you had to go inside the school and physically be a parent or a guardian of some sorts to take the student out of the classroom. So as I'm like, you know, going into the school and stuff, I pick up my little sister. My little sister, obviously, I love her to death. She's funny. She's cool. And me and her, we start heading out of the middle school and I start asking her how her day was and stuff. And then right as I got to the front of the middle school, basically warning her that I'm hanging out with this dude, my little sister's like, Bubba, where's your friend? You said you had one. Yeah, he was just here. Where'd he go? And at that moment, I started basically worrying because I thought maybe he went home or maybe he felt like I ditched him because I did take a minute to go pick up my sister. But then afterwards, I ended up hearing a bunch of little girls screaming in the school playground. I ended up looking at my little sister and she's like, that is not a normal scream. We should go see what's going on. So me and her, we ended up going to the school playground and we ended up seeing this weirdo that was considered my friend at the time taking photos of kids in the school playground. You guys are probably wondering like, oh, like what if he was just, you know, taking photos of the sky? No, he directly started aiming it at like middle school students and started taking photo of these girls. At this moment, I was like really like uncomfortable and I'm like, yo, bro, like, what are you doing? Oh, nothing. I'm just taking photos of my classmates is what my little sister says. And I'm like, yo, like this is weird, bro. Like you shouldn't be taking photos of students. And it even got to a point where a parent ended up walking up to me and this guy with the camera. He ends up being like, hey, are you taking photos of my daughter? Oh, it's for the school yearbook. I end up looking at him and I'm like, yo, that's a same excuse you used for me when you take photos of people in our school. And like things were adding up, but obviously I wanted to make sure this parent was taken care of, and me and this guy and my little sister ended up going back to my place. When we went back to my place, I told my sister to stay in her room and I ended up taking this guy up to my bedroom and I basically straight up took the camera off him and I said, yo, what's in the camera? Oh, I haven't gone through it yet. Let me go through it first. No, what's in the camera? Show me right now. Fine, it's in the SD card, but you can't tell anybody. I ended up taking the SD card out of the camera and I put it inside my laptop and I started scrolling through the photos that he took over the school year, and 80% of them were girls, our teacher that had a really nice pair of, you know, and literally my little sister and her friends in the playground. At this moment, I remember punching this guy straight up in the face and I was like super upset knowing like what he was doing. And I started to realize that this guy was basically Diddy because he ended up telling me afterwards being like, yo, bro, listen, I'm sorry, man. Like, I didn't mean for you to be upset. Like, honestly, like, I don't know what it is, but like little girls just get me excited. Are you kidding me? Is what I ended up yelling at him. And I ended up punching him again. And actually I ended up like basically grabbing him by the shirt and dragging him out of my house. I told him that I will expose expose him for everything he's done and as weird as he was. Obviously, he ended up praying and basically telling me and begging me that not to do it. And I'm not gonna lie, I ended up destroying the camera and the SD card that he had. 2 weeks later, he ended up getting exposed online for being a child predator, even though he was still underage. But still, let's just say things were really weird. This just goes to show that people in high school can also be really weird and really creepy. And overall, just stick to the golden rule. When you're younger, 2 years older. Best rule to go by for when it goes to getting girls.
All right, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. So today's story is about something that is actually insane and very, very illegal. And it all starts off back when I was in high school. Back when I was in high school, I remember there was a group of grade 12s in my school that were really, really sus. Like, to the point where I never felt comfortable being around them because they were really creepy. Like, I even remember one time when the grade 9s that were coming in, the brand new ones that just, like, you know, got to the school for their first year of grade 9, I remember hearing one of the grade 12s literally say, fresh meat. It was one of the most freakiest things ever, and honestly, utterly disgusting. Like, seriously, a grade 12 with a grade 9, like 18 to 14, like, are you serious right now? No, but seriously, it was majorly disgusting. And I remember one time there was a grade 12 at my school that ended up actually dating one of the grade 9s a week later. It was super awkward, and I remember one time I sat beside him during a class because he was also failing one of his classes. Like, he was in my grade 10 math class when he was in grade 12. Like, it was one of the most saddest things ever to see, but you know, knowing him, he was right beside me, and I had to ask him the question. I literally asked, hey, like, so I heard you're dating like the grade 9. You do realize she's like 14 turning 15, right? He looks at me and he's like, yeah, but like I'm in grade 10. Dude, you're 18 is what I told him. And he's like, oh, you got a problem with that? You got a problem with me dating a girl younger, huh? What's your issue with that? There's nothing wrong with that. We go to the same school. Yeah, dude, but she's literally 14. I remember this guy was like basically shrugging it off his shoulder as if it was nothing wrong. And in my mind, it was still purely disgusting. I don't know. It just made no sense to me how this was going on in my school. So I remember after asking him that, though, he got kind of upset at me the whole entire class, and let's just say I had to move seats because I didn't want to sit beside him anymore, which I mean, safer bet for me. Going on with the story, I remember a year went by and they were still dating. This guy was officially out of our high school, surprisingly, but he had to stay back for one more class. So this grade 12 would literally come back to our school and then go back. But knowing that 1 year passed as well, he literally broke up with his girlfriend. He broke up with his girlfriend. Now, I know you guys are thinking, oh, like, it's obvious, like, you know, he got out of school and he has no time to see her. That's what I thought at first, but no. The reason that he ended up breaking up with this girl was because she officially turned 15, or should I say 16, since she was turning already 15. And apparently that was out of his age range. So I remember I ended up asking this girl that he broke up with, I'm like, hey, like, why did he break up with you? And she legit told me, oh, like, because he said I was like too old or something for him. I don't know. He's like a real creep though. Like, I remember like I would always send him photos and like he was just super weird. Like, as I got older, he just didn't want to be with me anymore. So he just broke up with me randomly. It was just weird, but honestly, it's for the best. I remember when she said that, I was utterly disgusted. Knowing this was an actual thing that happened, like, you guys have no idea how disgusted I was and how much I really did not want to be there. But then begs the question, was he gonna go for another young girl? At this point, I wanted to tell something to my principal. Like, I literally wanted to tell my principal that basically he was a freak and that he was a pedophile at this point, because it was utterly disgusting. Like, it's gross. So I remember I decided to go to my counselor and kind of just see what she thought of it. And I remember basically when I got to the counselor, I kind of explained the situation. She's like, oh, well, you see, he's going through a lot of stuff back at home with family. It's okay. Like, I'll talk to him. I'll make sure everything's all right. I don't think anything's going on with him. Basically, the counselor just kind of blamed his home life for everything that was going on, which I mean, fair enough. If you're having a hard time at home, I understand. But at the same time, what would that have to do with dating a girl? Like, it just makes no sense. So then I remember I decided to actually one time watch him. I watched him throughout the whole school day, basically, which was only one block, because he would only come for one block because he was already basically a graduate. Because you got to think, a 19-year-old entering the school for one class and leaving just because he failed a couple classes was kind of sad. But, you know, I saw him come into the school and I basically followed him around and kind of see what was going on. As I was following, though, one thing I always noticed was that he went to the bathroom like 4 times a day. 4 times a day. It made no sense to me and it was kind of weird. So I kind of like looked at him and I kind of just like decided to go to the bathroom and see what was going on. When I went in there, no one was in there. So clearly he wasn't like, you know, dealing drugs or doing anything utterly illegal, unless I thought so. I remember I ended up leaving the bathroom and instantly he was right by the door looking at me saying, why are you following me? When he said that, I kind of was like, oh, like no reason. I was just like, you know, going to the bathroom. And he says, you can't pee for 0.5 seconds. I knew you just stood in there looking around. What are you doing? In my mind, I was thinking, why in the world did he think I was going to do something in there? And how did he know I was just standing around looking around the bathroom? It made no sense to me. So I remember I kind of just ended up walking away from him and basically just ignored him. He was really mad at me, but honestly, I had no issue with him. I didn't care. A couple days go by and he still came to the school. And I remember one time when I was in my classroom, we end up seeing 2 cops run down the hallway and we hear a ton of cop sirens. sirens. Like a lot of them. We had no idea what was going on. So I remember this girl ended up putting her hand up saying, ma'am, why are there a lot of cops outside? I remember my teacher looks outside and literally says, I actually have no idea. Let me go check on what's going on. So my teacher ends up leaving the classroom and literally all the students decide to get up and look outside the window and see what was going on. As we were seeing this go on, basically, there was like more than 7 cop cars outside. It was the most weirdest thing ever, and things got from weird to worse. Because as we saw a bunch of cops basically running around the hallways, there was one student in particular that was basically running away from the school as fast as he could, and he looked really suspicious. It was literally the guy that was basically what I thought a pedophile. He ends up basically running away from the school, and he had something really heavy in his bag. It made no sense, so we were all kind of just looking around going like, what's he running from? And then out of nowhere, and this was the most craziest scene to ever see in my life, like it was straight out of a movie, we see a cop chasing him down, going after him. It was so majestic, and I literally remember seeing this guy literally sprinting for his life, and the cop literally decides to dive and literally tackle this 19-year-old teenager that was going to our high school still, and literally like held him to the ground. Everyone was looking around. Every girl was like freaking out saying like, oh my goodness, like that guy used to like ask me for photos. Oh my goodness, like I know that guy. And basically everyone was talking about him. At this point, I think I knew what was going on. But then the thing that really made me figure out what in the world was going on was that when the cop was going through his bag, instantly out of nowhere, we see him pull out 2 cameras and one like giant kind of like monitor tablet kind of thingy. And then at this point, the teacher walks back into the classroom and says, announcements are going to come on soon. Just everyone sit down and listen. Basically what ended up happening was that the announcements came on 2 seconds later, and it kind of went like this.
We are going to be having an assembly coming soon. Everyone please line up at your doors and head down to the gym. Thank you.
At this point, I think I knew what was going on. It was pretty obvious at this point. When 2 cameras and a tablet come out and this guy is a straight up pedophile, well, you kind of can expect what's going on. I remember all the kids ended up lining up and everyone started heading down for the gym. When we all got down there, we all sat down in the gym and we all sat down waiting for the principal to come up and tell us what was going on. Like, for example, why there were a ton of cops outside and basically the story of why a kid got tackled literally in front of the school. We all sat down and the principal comes up to the school in front of everyone and says, parents, students, teachers, today we're going to be informing you about safety hazard that has happened to our school. Basically what has happened is that a teenager, basically a failing student in our school, has been arrested in front of our school recently because he put cameras in the school bathrooms. I want to inform everyone that I apologize for anything that's happened. We were not informed of this happening, and apparently he's been doing it for a while. It's been calculated and the footage goes back around 1.5 years. So if any people have been on the recordings doing anything illegal, we will know because we're going to be scanning through the footage to make sure if any students got hurt and any students have been exposed. For the students that have been exposed, we will be putting an informant out and a police officer will be sent to your home to basically see if you want to press charges. We apologize for this happening at our school. We promise to be more informative and basically be more scanning through our bathrooms to make sure the safety of our students are still capable. Thank you for listening. When that was said, everyone freaked out. Everyone was like, wait, what? This guy recorded us in the bathroom? And here's not even the weird part. Apparently, the student literally put cameras in a toilet seat, one in the like the wall of like the roof kind of area so you can like see into the stalls. And the last one was that he literally put one in the sink. In the sink? Like, how do you not see that? In my mind, I'm thinking, how in the world do I not notice this? It was really awkward, and I remember basically a lot of kids had questions. A lot of people put their hands up and stuff, and apparently he put some in the girls' bathroom, the all-gender bathroom, and even the guys' bathroom. Like, what? He was watching guys go to the bathroom? It was super weird and super gross, and I remember all the students were basically disgusted. Knowing this and knowing that the kid literally got tackled in our school was basically just grossed out. But I mean, hey, at the end of the day, he got arrested.
Now, on the internet, it's very common for things to get leaked. But one thing I would say is that getting your eggplant leaked has got to be the most embarrassing thing ever. And trust me, this story gets really insane. But before we get into that, make sure you guys press that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Seriously, it means a lot when you guys do. And trust me when I say this, you're gonna want to subscribe for more crazy stories like this one. But other than that, let's just jump straight into today's crazy story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to a really embarrassing story. So today's story all takes place back when I was in high school, and this was my grade 11 year. Now in grade 11, I'm not gonna lie to you, I wasn't the wisest, nor was I the most innocent. At this time, my body count was really high, and honestly, I would do the devil's tango with whatever walked. But I gotta say, this one time back when I was in high school was really just embarrassing, because I remember one time there was a girl in my theater class that I thought was really attractive. By the way, the reason I took theater in grade 11 was because I had a really bad stutter growing up, and I still sometimes do, but you guys never get to see it because I always end up cutting it out of the video. But one thing I will say is that my stutter was really bad, and I remember basically I want to find any way to get rid of it. So what I decided to do was take theater. And I remember when I enter theater class, it's actually very surprising how many attractive girls take theater. Because I will say this, there was one girl in my theater class that I found super attractive. Like, I am not joking when I say this. She was beautiful, she was smart, and also on top of that, she was just outstanding. Every time I looked at her, I'm not gonna lie to you, it made me want to do more theater than any other class. But obviously at this time, I was a major player, like I said earlier. So what I decided to do was walk up to her and just straight up ask her for her number. I remember this girl looked at me, and for some reason, it seemed like she didn't like me, but at the same time, she actually ended up giving me her number. Everyone in the class saw this, and I remember she ended up telling me, make sure you text me later. I ended up smiling and actually being very shocked. And I remember when it became lunchtime that day, I ended up going up to my friends and telling them how I ended up pulling this girl's number. A lot of them looked at me very, in shock. And I remember one of my buddies had a girlfriend at the time, and she told me, Bubba, you do know she actually really hates you, right? Why would she hate me? I didn't do anything to her. It's not that you didn't do anything to her, it's that she doesn't like who you are because of what girls have said about you. Now, when she said this, I knew what she meant, because at the time, like I said, I had a really high body count, and a lot of girls, well, they talk. So obviously I didn't have the best reputation. But one thing I will say is that I didn't really understand what this girl was trying to say. She's saying that she doesn't like me, but then she likes me, but then she doesn't. None of it made any sense whatsoever until later that night. And what happens later that night? Well, let's just say I got really naughty. I remember around nighttime, it was super late, and I remember I just finished playing video games with the boys, finished my homework, and I was just laying down in bed on my phone. And when I was on my phone, I remember this girl actually ended up texting me. She ended up texting me the "you up" message that most girls send when they want to interact with a dude super late at night. And I ended up texting her back saying, yeah, what's up? And right away, instead of saying what was up, she ended up actually sending me a photo of her Snapchat profile. Now at this point, I knew what she wanted. She wanted me to add her on Snapchat, so that's what I did, because most girls for some reason feel more comfortable texting on Snapchat than on an actual number. And then afterwards, I remember she ended up basically snapping me saying, hey, with her face showing on the side. Now, I don't know why people like to take half face photos. It makes no sense, but to be fair, back when I was in high school, I would do it a lot because my jawline was popping more than ever. So I ended up saying the same thing back, and then afterwards, me and her, we started talking. She started telling me how, she heard about me a lot throughout the school, and how, I was the master of the Devil's Tango. And I told her, yeah, and I got a little cocky to the point where I remember she ended up asking to see it. Now, when she asked me to see my eggplant, I was a little nervous. I'm like, whoa, I usually don't send photos like that, but at the same time, this girl's really attractive, and who knows where it'll take us. I remember I ended up sending a photo of my eggplant to her, and then she ended up sending me a photo of her cherries. And let's just say we started exchanging photos, which, by the way, no one should do. Trust me, security reasons, safety reasons, don't do this. It is not appropriate to send photos as a young person doing this. It is not a good idea. So if anyone's watching this video, don't do what I did. But going on with the story, I remember we sent photos back and forth, and it got really to the point where it was just super weird, because I really did not feel comfortable doing this, but I still did it anyway because it was a girl I liked. And then I remember me and her, we ended up, having a good night that night. I ended up passing out after I busted. And then, well, the next day, what ends up happening, honestly, I think made me cry. I'm not joking. It was super embarrassing, because the next day when I went to school, a lot of people started staring at me for some reason, and I had no idea why. And I will say this much too, a lot of guys started staring at me, and almost basically every girl at my school was looking at me as if I just was walking around the school naked. It made no sense to me why everyone was looking at me. Until later that day, I remember I went to theater class, and I walked up to the girl that I was talking to the night before, my crush at the time. And I started talking to her and stuff, but she seemed to not want to talk to me at all. It was like she didn't even want to interact with me, nothing. It was like she hated me even more than she did before. And at that point, it made no sense to me, because everyone was staring at me as if I did something wrong, but yet this girl wouldn't interact with me. It was like the whole day was just flipped. And then I remember lunchtime came around. And when lunchtime came around, I remember I went to the boys to go sit with them at lunch, and my buddy ends up looking at me saying, yo, Bubba, I didn't know you were packing, bro. I remember I looked at him, I'm like, wait, what? What are you talking about? And then afterwards, his girlfriend ended up walking up to me saying, Bubba, you do realize that all the girls in the school have seen your eggplant? Wait, what do you mean? I didn't do that many people. I done most of the girls in the school, yeah, but not that many. No, Bubba, I didn't mean that, dummy. I mean, look at this. And at that moment, she ends up showing me a photo of my eggplant in a group chat full of girls in my school. At this point, I was embarrassed. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. And honestly, it was super weird how this girl decided to totally just leak my eggplant, to the point where I remember I went up to her after school that day, and I asked her why she did it. She ended up telling me that I needed a taste of my own medicine and stuff, and how, I needed to get more embarrassed than the girls I would leave and just do the Devil's Tango with. And she ended up telling me one final thing that to this day made me question everything, where she said, Bubba, you have to stop treating treating women like objects. That's not what I was doing. It made no sense. Like, she enjoyed what I was doing. I enjoyed what I was doing. Pleasure. Like, I don't understand why in the world this girl put it that way. I remember a couple days went by and a lot of people started realizing that my eggplant was leaked. And then I remember a week went by. And after a week, I remember, funny enough, I started getting DMs on my Instagram, which, by the way, you guys should follow my Instagram. And a lot of my DMs were filled with girls from other schools wanting to basically do the devil's tango. And honestly, even though this whole thing was made out to embarrass me, it seemed like that I ended up pulling more girls because of it. So at the end of the day, was I really losing? Anyways, guys, that is basically it for today's embarrassing story. Make sure you guys press that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like I always say, just follow for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.